With the release of the Ring City expansion, the Dark Souls saga has come to a close, and now that all the bosses for Dark Souls 3 have been revealed, I want to finally share some of my personal favorites. Whether it's fighting a monstrous foe or a challenging duel with another warrior, the boss fights in Dark Souls 3 are some of the best in the series. There are so many fabulous boss battles in Dark Souls 3, and it was very hard choosing just 5 of my favorites. But these next few choices are the ones I enjoy the most, due to their lore, music, and the fight itself. So in no particular order, here are my favorite 5 Dark Souls 3 bosses. Number 1. High Lord Woolnear. Long ago, the rightful lords of many great lands ruled together, until they were brought to their knees by the conqueror of Carthus, Woolnear. Woolnear killed countless people, keen to outlive each and every one of them, and established himself as the one true High Lord. However, some time later, Woolnear fell to the abyss and was almost engulfed by its utter blackness. Pleading to the gods for mercy, High Lord Woolnear obtained holy armlets, which prevented the abyss from claiming him entirely. After trekking through the catacombs of Carthus, we are transported to the abyss to fight this now skeletal High Lord. High Lord Woolnear is different from most fights in the game in that he is impervious to damage, save for his glowing armlets. But he defends himself through his dark magic and his mighty strength. Woolnear is also able to summon skeletal warriors, making the fight even more chaotic. While this battle isn't one of the most challenging in the game, it's one of my favorites because of the terrifying atmosphere, unsettling music, and the unique aspect of destroying Woolnear's protective armlets. Upon defeating High Lord Woolnear, the abyss at last takes hold of him, and he is literally dragged to the void below, ending the reign of the ruthless conqueror once and for all. Number 2. Abyss Watchers. Farron's undead legion were tasked with destroying anything that was tainted by the mark of the Abyss, and so the helm and blood-drenched capes of the Abyss Watchers came to be feared throughout the land. This band of undead brothers shared the wolf's blood, a power which allowed them to become Lords of Cinder and Link the Fire. Yet when we find them in the remains of Farron Keep, they have gone mad and are locked in eternal combat with one another. You start the fight against one Abyss Watcher, but soon another will join the fray and attack you. Later still, another Watcher will rise and will start fighting his own comrades, giving you a slight edge in the battle. Once you defeat the Watchers for the first time, the wolf's blood will unite into one body, and the Abyss Watcher ignites into a Lord of Cinder. Now the Watcher fights with a similar moveset, but with fire added to every attack, and he can also create fiery explosions. This battle is one of the first true challenges in the game, and together with the compelling lore and the haunting soundtrack, it is easily one of my favorites. Number 3. Slave Knight Gale. In the painted world of Ariandel lives a curious, white-haired girl who wishes to paint a new world, one of peace, gentleness, and the calm of the dark. To accomplish this, however, she needs the Dark Soul to act as pigment to bring this world to life, and a slave knight known as Gale has dedicated his life to this girl and her dream of a new world. Slave Knight Gale helps us throughout the land of Ariandel, and also helps us in our journey through the ancient Ring City. There, Gale finds the pygmy lords of old and attempts to retrieve the fragments of the Dark Soul from them. Much to his despair, the blood of the Dark Soul is dried up, and so Gale begins consuming the pygmy lords and everything else in sight, and continues to do so over an untold amount of time. When we find Gale, he is transformed into a monstrous, bloodthirsty being who is hellbent on claiming the Dark Soul. Seeing a fragment within us, Gale attacks us, and the final boss battle in the series begins.
What? Still here? Hand it over, that thing, your dark soul. For my lady's painting.
Slave Knight Gale is one of the most exhilarating and challenging bosses in the entire Dark Souls series. The first phase of the fight has him attacking us in an almost feral state, and his combos are fairly unpredictable. After doing a moderate amount of damage to him, Gale starts bleeding out onto his sword and realizes that the blood of the Dark Soul has now reformed within him, and he wields its power. With the Dark Soul fueling his rage, Gale unleashes his true strength, and the battle becomes even more frantic. Gale fights us with all of his being, and towards the last part of the grand battle, lightning strikes impact the landscape. This boss fight is utterly incredible, and makes for a terrific finale, not only for the Ring City expansion, but all of Dark Souls. It's difficult and a true test of endurance, but it is nail-bitingly awesome every step of the way, and I love it for that.
My thanks, Ashen One. With this will I paint a world. Please tell me thy name. I would name this painting after thee. My thanks. I will paint a world of that name. 'Twill be a cold, dark, and very gentle place. And one day, it will make someone a goodly home.
Number 4. Aldrich, Devourer of Gods. Once, the Cathedral of the Deep was a place of the devout and the good, until a man named Aldrich twisted all that was once righteous about their ideals. Aldrich began proclaiming of a new age, an age of the deep sea, and sought to obtain power to make this age come to pass. With a monstrous and unnatural appetite, Aldrich began devouring men until he became so bloated he was not unlike sludge. He was made a Lord of Cinder, not for virtue, but for his sheer might. After abandoning his throne as a lord, Aldrich sought even greater power and desired to become a devourer of gods. With the help of Pontiff Solivan and the Aldrich faithful, Aldrich journeyed to the ancient city of Anor Londo, where he began consuming the last remaining god of the city, Dark Sun Gwyndolin. As we fight this grotesque and horrifying Lord of Cinder, he uses Gwyndolin's abilities, such as powerful sorceries and a storm of arrows with the Dark Moon bow. Aldrich is an incredibly dangerous opponent, and he can swiftly kill you if you aren't careful. Keeping track of him when he teleports and staying on the move is key to surviving this fight. I love how the area we fight Aldrich in is the same as one of the other great boss fights in the series, and the music for this battle is a wicked version of Gwyndolin's theme from the original Dark Souls. The other Lords of Cinder have more sympathetic qualities to them, but not Aldrich. He's a true monster and villain in this game, and ending his reign of terror is quite satisfying.
I owe this to you. Thank you, truly. Horace, we've done it. We really have.
Number 5. Soul of Cinder. Ever since Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, linked the First Flame and put the world in a cycle of fire and dark. The future of the world was doomed to repeat itself. This act came to be known as the First Sin, and since then many chosen heroes have taken part in this cycle, constantly relighting the flame and restarting the cycle of the world. At the end of Dark Souls 3, we arrive at the kiln of the first flame, and we have the choice to continue this cycle before us. But before we can decide, we have to face the soul of Cinder, who is the personification of all those who have linked the first flame. Warriors, sorcerers, clerics, pyromancers, every player aspect is reflected in the soul of Cinder, and will use all the memories of those who came before to defeat you. Halfway through this battle, the soul of Cinder draws a great flaming sword, and the music changes to a familiar, somber tone. The soul of Cinder is now driven by the memory of Gwyn, and this Lord of Sunlight from ages long past will have one final confrontation. The emotion of this battle is so great, especially for those who have been with the series since the beginning. It encapsulates the core conflict of Dark Souls, and also provides one of the more challenging final bosses in the entire Souls franchise. I absolutely love this boss battle, and once we defeat the Soul of Cinder, we are offered one last chance. Do we want to continue the cycle of the world? Or perhaps, do we want something else entirely? The choice is ours, and it makes for an outstanding ending for Dark Souls 3. So those were my favorite 5 Dark Souls 3 bosses. What are some of your favorites? Feel free to share in the comments below. Until next time, keep having great adventures, everyone.
You ignorant slaves. Finally taken notice, have you? Of the power of my beloved Ocelot, child of dragons.